Welcome to another episode of Assess That with Tom and Nat.
And happy Monday, everyone. We hope everyone had a great weekend. And by now, everyone is either likely back to work or in preparation to go back to work. And
yes,
something's going on there for sure.
It's both exciting and daunting. Exciting because it's a fresh sense of renewal, and daunting because getting back into that routine, especially when it's waking up early, is hard.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot to that I think part of it is as a teacher and educator, when you have such a long stretch over the summer, unless you have little children, you're getting used to these long, lazy mornings and coffee and all the things that we do. And the next thing you know, you're having to get up early and get back to work. So it's interesting. The last 2 weeks of August always remind me of two things.
Okay.
They remind me of the early days of coaching, because usually in the last 2 weeks of August, we would have our 2-a-day practices start, and we would always I'd have to be at work anyway, and we'd start practicing, getting ready for the upcoming season, the football season. And it also reminds me of the P&E, because for those of you who don't know, the P&E is the Pacific National Exhibition. It happens in the last 2 weeks of August. It ends on Labor Day. And then here in BC, schools all return the day after Labor Day. So the P&E is always this thing at the end of the summer. It's usually raining for most of it. And it's kind of a weird thing that there's this September is usually a beautiful month. And the P&E, though, you're often getting rained on. I remember one year I went with my parents when I was a kid, and it was raining so hard my dad stole 3 plastic garbage bags out of a custodian cart or something like that.
Yeah.
And we cut holes in them so we could actually have rain jackets there so we walk around the P&E.
How
That was the 70s. Everything went. It was the wild, wild
You didn't
west.
even have seatbelts.
No, we didn't have seatbelts back in the day. What about the last 2 weeks of August for you? Besides the going back to work part, is there anything it reminds you of in terms of...
Do you know what's funny? Because I grew up in the Okanagan, which is a part of the interior of this province of British Columbia. And so you had the P&E, big city boy. We had the IPE, the Interior Provincial Exhibition. And it was the same, just like on a minus 10x scale. So yeah, that would always be the highlight for me, though. That was like where you'd see everyone the start of the school year. Yeah. You know, you get to ride on the zipper and all the little...
Oh, you had a zipper. I was sort of envisioning
rides.
like shopping cart and a couple of ramps.
Okay, it wasn't that bad. No, we had legitimate rides. I was on the octopus once when it broke down. That was kind of a wild time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the IPE was always kind of like, okay, it's that time of year. And
you and I talked about this a little while ago about how people take their life in their hands when they go, like you show up at the Safeway parking lot or whatever, and the zipper is set up there.
Here, we're just going to throw you in a little cage
16-year-old
and
flips the
full speed on, like, what? How
did
we
we even
do that?
allowed to get on that is unbelievable. But the last couple weeks of August. So we know the next time, listeners, you join us, everyone will be back to work for sure after Labor Day. That's a guarantee for sure. So reminder of the upcoming PD event schedule for the fall. I'm going to be in Atlanta September 22nd, 23rd for the Grading from the Inside Out 2-day training. I will also be doing that training October 22nd, 23rd in San Diego. At the same time, or just the overlap, Natalie is going to be in Spokane, Washington doing the Grading from the Inside Out 2-day training. So if you want to come to the West Coast, you can either go to the southern West Coast in San Diego
or sunny San Diego or Spokane.
December 2nd, 3rd, I will be doing the Standards-Based Learning in Action workshop in Austin, Texas. Of course, we have links in the show notes for all of those events.
As we are still early in the school year, we thought it would be a good time to rethink the rules that we've inherited around grading. Right. So this episode, we are going to challenge 5 common grading practices that may be holding students back unintentionally and offer practical, research-informed mindsets that can replace them.
Right. So if you're ready to start the year with greater clarity, you're ready to start the year with greater fairness and purpose, this is your invitation to hit the reset button.
That's today's plan. Let's get to it.
Okay, today's episode is all about fresh starts, new year, new grading mindset.
We're calling this one Great Expectations. The English teacher in me couldn't help myself. Yeah. Resetting the rules for a new year.
Because let's be honest, some of our grading rules are more inherited habits than things we've come up with. So we're going to start with this question, right? What if the only reason that you're doing it the way you do it is because that's how it's always been done?
I just want to let that hang in the air for a minute.
Yeah.
So what if the only reason we're doing things is because that's how it's always been done? There's a lot of things you could apply that to in education. Totally. But moving on, whether you're new to standards-based grading or outcomes-based grading, if you're Canadian, or just trying to be more intentional this year, this episode will help you to just have a little mindset reset on expectations. And this is not just for students, but really for us.
Right, for everyone. So last episode, we talked about first impressions kind of writ large, and we did talk a little bit about grading, but we know nothing sends a stronger message to students than how we grade. And so we want to focus on grading for this episode and really drill down. So the segment structure is we're going to talk a little bit about 5 different rules that need to be reset. So each of the rules will come with kind of this inherited belief, and we're going to offer a mindset reset, like a reframing of that issue. We're going to talk about why it matters, and we're going to talk about what you can try going into this year. So let's start with the first one. So one of the inherited rules that a lot of people follow is that early grades kind of set the tone, right? They like that idea of setting the tone, but we want to offer a reset on that mindset, and that early grades, instead of setting the tone, early grades build momentum, right? The rule often leads this rule around setting the tone often leads teachers to grade everything from day one, right? And really set the tone about the seriousness, thinking that this shows students that we're serious about school and that if it's graded, we're taking it seriously.
I can't. Like, I'm a heart grader. I need to break them in. Like this, do you know what this rule kind of reminds me of? Is that old teaching adage that we all hear as a new teacher. You know, they're not going to respect you if you smile before Christmas. What load of BS.
What happened to us?
Some of the stuff that gets passed down, and you just as the kids would say, I hope I can swear, dead ass, had someone tell me once, the purpose of middle school is to break kids. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, we have to, sometimes I think people kind of, like, there's a twinkle, like, I'm kind of joking, but they're kind of not. And I think that's how this stuff starts to take hold. And then it becomes, like, we talked about this in our previous episode, it becomes a policy all of a sudden. Like, oh, it's the policy. You're not supposed to smile until Christmas. It's the policy. You have to grade really hard. So they know that you're a hard grader. So they take it seriously. Or what if they just go, oh, this is going to be another one of those classes where I'm just asked to do a bunch of irrelevant crap that I don't want to do so that there's numbers in a book, in a grade book somewhere. Like, that's the tone that we tend to set when that's how we start with like a hard grading kind of a thing. So what if, here's a crazy idea. What if early grades were about building confidence and giving really great feedback and starting the dialogue with kids? I don't know. I feel like that's a space that I'd rather show up and actually stay and learn in than like, I'm here to like rank and sort you and put numbers on you to show you that this is serious.
Yeah. We have this, I don't know if it's nostalgia. We hearken back to this time. Kids should be seen, not heard. I'm going to break you. Like, for me, what a miserable way to enter the profession. And admittedly, I fell into some of these traps in the early part of my career.
We all did.
Yeah, fair. But, there are ways. We talked about this in the last episode. What if we use those early assessments as sort of diagnostic evidence to find out who they are as learners, like a snapshot without grades that allows us to gather information that can help support students and let students begin a habit of revision. Because again, rather than setting the tone, which has such a negative connotation, what if you used it to build momentum? Those early grading opportunities are a way to sort of have kids hit the ground running and how they can build momentum going forward.
Absolutely. So another habit that often lived in the like grade everything mindset was let's start with the easy stuff so that they can get some quick wins, 100%, pad up the grade book, make everyone happy. Okay, but then if you're giving them these really simple, like we would like have them color maps, full transparency. If you're giving them that very simple task, there's not really a lot of revision needed. And like, how do you even revise your colored map? So choose something that is like interesting. It's relevant. It's thought-provoking. It's something where you're like, hey, there's so much going well here. Here's all the strengths I notice. Here's one thing I want you all to try today. Let's see who can really figure out how to make this work. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but here's one little prompt for you today to see if we can make this even better. Like just coach them right from the get-go. Like what matters the most in this classroom is that we are learners. We are constantly looking for ways to improve, but we're also noticing our strengths. All those things are really important here.
This doesn't feel like an overly challenging concept because what is the opposite? If your early grades aren't building momentum, what are they building?
Despair,
resentment. Like I'd love to hear the argument, the counter argument to building momentum, because you have a semester or you have a whole school year to go through. And if the early grades are stifling momentum, halting momentum. That doesn't seem like a productive way to think of things. So rather than setting the tone with grades, rule number 1, let's reframe that and say, every grade in the early stages should be about building momentum. Okay, let's go to number 2.
This brings us to our second rule, that grading teaches responsibility.
Oh my.
One of us might have written an entire
Someone might have written a book about that.
this topic called Redefining Student Accountability.
Right,
you can get
right.
it now on Amazon
Right.
or wherever you get great books. It's Tom, for the record,
Yeah.
not me. But grading teaches responsibility. We want to flip this and offer this mindset instead. Feedback builds responsibility.
Yeah.
2 keywords change there.
Yeah.
Grades for feedback and teaches for builds.
Yeah.
Because it's bizarre that just throwing a number on something, especially people will use this when it's like a 0, right? Well, it's teaching them responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time someone threw a random number at you and that taught you anything? As opposed to described, showed, gave you an example, gave
Right.
you a model, asked you a great question, aka feedback.
Right.
And that starts to build. Like I hate that people use the word teaching
Mm-hmm.
in relation to like very traditional grading
Oh,
practices.
for sure.
Because I don't know about the rest of anyone listening or watching, but when I went through university, it was when the grading practices were the absolute worst. I was a English literature major.
Mm-hmm.
I would have a random number slapped at the top out of 100. It would be like 68. Why are you in university? 92, superior.
Yeah.
I wasn't taught a single
You're not taught anything.
damn thing.
Yeah, we play fast and loose with the word teach when it comes to those behavioral elements or aspects like responsibility. I've been saying this for years, and I've said it on this podcast before. You don't teach math by penalizing someone's inability to do math. And this idea that you're going to teach responsibility by penalizing their irresponsibility is absurd at best. Responsibility thrives when students see the purpose of the work. Think about this. If you have to lean on grades to get kids to do things, we might want to do an audit of what we're asking students to do.
Facts.
Because if they don't see the value, if it is busy work. Now, I know that there are going to be students on the periphery. We're talking about the majority of students here. If the majority of students see the purpose of the work and they understand its connection to the big picture, that's when you get motivation. If the only motivation they have is to get the points, then ultimately you don't really have much of substance that you're asking kids to do. And again, I know with individual students, this is going to vary from time to time, but generally speaking, when students see the big picture, they're connected to it. So grades should actually be a reflection of and reinforce learning, not just compliance or obedience for getting things done.
Oh, I wish you could just say that again and again. But here's what we're going to offer you. So we want to leave you with a couple practical things to try.
Right.
If you want to adopt this mindset reset that feedback builds responsibility, just try giving a couple feedback-only tasks. Just keep any grade, number, letter far away from it and just really highlight their effort, their thinking, their self-regulation, who they're becoming as, like, turn it into a dialogue is what we're trying to say. Just don't worry about where they fall on a different scale or anything.
Yeah.
Just use it as an opportunity to open up dialogue, even if it's only a couple things just to dip your toes in.
Yeah.
And the other thing we would suggest is really hold space to encourage students to look at the information in front of them, look at the feedback, and to set some kind of a personal goal. So it could be a goal related to some of the skills they're working on, like writing, problem solving in math, designing an investigation in science. Have them actually look at the feedback you're giving and come up with some kind of a meaningful next step for themselves. If you just start with those 2 things and you just dabble in them, you'll be shocked at some of the results that you'll get.
Yeah, more often than not, I don't know how many times I can remember asking people when they say to me, if I don't grade it, they won't do it. And I look at them and I say, have you ever tried it? And the answer is almost invariably no. So this is a prediction about how we think students are going to respond. And I recognize that teachers have experience and can make predictions, but I also think until you've tried it, because I made that prediction myself. I thought, if I don't grade it, this is 22 years ago when I began this assessment journey. If I don't grade it, are they going to do it? I wondered. And what I found is when I stopped grading homework, nothing changed.
No.
The kids who struggled to do their homework still struggled to do their homework. And the kids who always completed their homework always completed their homework. So the predictions I was hypothesizing did not come true. So it is interesting how we often make these predictions.
Yeah, give it a try. Test it out.
Let's
see
go
if
to
your
number
hypothesis is true. Rule 3.
Rule number 3. And this relates to what we were just talking about around zeros, right? Because the mindset that typically the traditional mindset is that zeros show students the consequences for inaction, right? And we want to reframe that. And we want to think about, listeners, the fact that zeros stop the learning conversation, right? So I know that a lot of teachers think that the 0 feels like a strong stance, but ultimately it's a dead end for learning. And it may not be the dead end that you think it is, because it closes the door instead of keeping the door open. This is so ironic to me when teachers say the idea of teaching responsibility, or I'm going to use the 0. If you give me a 0 and I'm still passing, and I'm still satisfied with my grade, and I still have a B in your class, I never have to do that assignment. I don't have to do that project. So you've actually just rendered that project as unnecessary. It's optional. That's not accountability.
No.
That's actually letting me off the hook. That's making things easier for me. So we might at times have an intention, but we may also end up with an unintended consequence of our action in terms of how we use the 0.
Absolutely. As the queen of C's make degrees in university and what things can I not do because I will happily take that 0 to avoid doing them. I can definitely attest. And everyone, come on, don't anyone pretend that you weren't kind of like that a little bit once you got to university and figured out the rules of the game.
Exactly.
So a missing assignment, we want to be crystal clear here, isn't just a behavior problem. It's a signal.
Right.
They're trying to tell us something. So even in my situation in university, if I think back to myself, I was trying to signal to the teacher, like, this isn't very relevant to me. I don't understand why we're doing this. This feels like a make work project. And even as I went back and started my master's, which I never finished, but that's a whole story for another time. I actually, instead of just taking the 0, because I was a very adult, much more competent professional at that point in my life, I went to the professor and said, listen, I see what you're doing here. It's feeling really low level regurgitation for me. Can I do an inquiry project instead? Can I synthesize across 3 different texts instead of just telling you what one text said? The answer was no. So I went back to like, all right, well, whatever. And hence I didn't finish it because I was like, I don't want to play this game anymore. My learning is too valuable to me at, at the time, 34 years old. I love my profession. I love learning. And I just can't waste hours picking up rocks from one pile and putting them in another. So sometimes that signal is actually them telling us like, this ain't it. Keep going. And kids are amazing, actually, I got to say. When you open up to them and be like, that didn't hit. They're like, nope, that did not. But they'll throw a million ideas at you about how you could make things more engaging, different ways you could approach things. They don't want to be sitting bored. They don't.
No. And if you can show them the relevance of what they're learning and what you're asking them to do to reveal evidence of learning, and you can help them understand how important this evidence is, not just for this moment, but going forward, then you can make task completion, air quotes, task completion, a part of the culture. Like, I need the evidence. You need to show the evidence of learning. It's so not, I need you to get this done. I need you to complete this, because we turn school into this sort of obedience, compliance routine, right? So our advocacy is around using an I or an incomplete or an in progress. And as someone who wrote 7 chapters about redefining accountability, we create a system in the school that allows for these things to get done. No one is arguing. Let me make this crystal clear. No one is arguing that students don't need to complete their assignments.
No.
Now, could we do a little bit of an audit on what we're asking them to do? Yes. But once we've done that, and we think this is important evidence, it is important for students to fully participate in the educational program. So we're not trying to wield the power of the grade book to coerce them to do something. We want them to see the value of what they're learning and understand how it fits the big picture. So incomplete, in progress is the most accurate thing you could say in a grade book about somebody who hasn't submitted all of the evidence. If I run 24, use your imagination. If I run 24 of 26 miles in a marathon and I don't finish the race, I don't get an aggregated time. My score is DNF, did not finish. That goes in the record. So when you're not done, you're not done. And that's what the incomplete or in progress reveals. I'm not going to distort your grade downward with a 0. I'm not going to inflate your grade, which is what actually happens with some grade books when you leave the cell empty. I'm going to tell the truth. And the truth is you are incomplete. And that box needs to be filled in, making sure that that box is being filled with high quality evidence. So task completion, all of that can be a part of it as long as we do the back end work of making sure that what we're asking kids to do is of high quality.
Exactly. And that incomplete, insufficient, it does then what the most important purpose of assessment is. It opens dialogue.
It opens
a conversation with a kid.
Right.
But let's move on to rule number 4.
Okay, rule number 4.
Rule 4 we often hear is, but I have to grade everything. The fake policy that exists somewhere that no one will claim. So here's the mindset reset that we want to offer. Not all work needs a grade to be valuable.
Right.
Not all work needs a grade to be valuable.
No.
In fact, you could probably think of some examples as an adult out in the world where you are not being graded every second of every day, where there's things that you take up that have insane value.
Yeah.
And there's no letter grade at the end of it. So we know this is true.
Yeah.
And yet we have this fear in the school space that grades have to touch absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like we just talked about this on the last episode a little bit, but perhaps there's something with our own hangups around productivity and work.
Yeah.
And the more that I put grades in a grade book, the more it shows people that I'm working, that I'm busy.
doing
Because
my
how many
job.
times, like, and I've been here, you've sat in the staff room
Yeah.
and you're like, oh man, I got 26 entries in the grade book. And someone's like, I only have 5. And you're like, Like we're constantly trying to flex on each other, right? As if that matters. Like 18 of those could be crossword puzzles and coloring sheets. Like who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
But I think there is some deeper stuff we have to work through ourselves in that we carry these grind culture myths in our head that we then enact upon the grade book. Because the more I grade, the more valuable I look, the more productive I look. Ergo,
I love a good ergo.
I'm a better teacher.
Ergo, I'm a better teacher. Can we just be honest here? Grading everything is not sustainable. You can't talk about how burnt out you are with grading and then say you have to grade everything, right? And it's actually not very strategic either, because we know that a lot of the risk-taking, a lot of the thinking, the creativity, the innovation with students happens a lot of times when they are able to stumble. Like, it's productive failure, if you will. I can do poorly, I can revise, I can keep rolling. We have to stop thinking of the grade book as a scrapbook.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's not Creative Memories from 2001 where you're sticking all the stuff in there and it's
I love
just
to get Creative Memories.
Well, it was kind of fun back in the day.
Okay.
Lots of cool little tools and
Lots
things
of
like that.
stickers.
But bottom line is, it is meant to be most representative of the student's learning and reflective of their learning, as opposed to just being a scrapbook that you throw everything in there. So what are some things that you think teachers can do going into this school year to kind of get to that place where we communicate value without having to grade it?
Here's a simple one recommended in another great book by Tom Schimmer called Grading from the Inside Out, one of his bestsellers, 60,000 copies. Anyways, I digress, is just stop grading homework.
Yeah.
If you want to start somewhere and you're looking for something in the scope of all the things we do, just give it a try.
Yeah.
Say, and here's what you can do instead. I love this suggestion. So we want to show that it's valuable. And where does the value come in? Well, the evidence allows us to start a dialogue, like we said. So if you're not going to grade homework, do this instead. Have students write a 1, a 2, or a 3 at the top when they take it up themselves. 1 is, I need more challenge. That was too easy.
Yeah.
2 is, I kind of made my way through it, but like I could just use some more practice.
Right.
Like, give me a couple more questions, but I kind of get it. 3 is, I need help.
Yeah.
And that's the most important one of all.
Yeah.
Because what that allows us to do the next day is, instead of just like a 10-minute review at the start of class, you could actually bring the students in, group the 1s together, give them some extension opportunities. The 2, they get more practice, or they become maybe some kind of like, they do some kind of peer activity together to elaborate on their learning. But the kids who need help, you now have your tier 2 intervention in a small group right there.
Right.
Valuable.
Right. Absolutely. I love that strategy. It's so quick. It communicates. It's clear to the teacher. We have to have this mindset of practice, right? Where things aren't graded. And sometimes we can ask ourselves a very important question. When you're grading something, am I just filling a column, or is this actually going to advance or propel student learning going forward? I think that's a very important. So very important goals to ask ourselves. Let's get to our final rule.
Let's do it.
Rule number 5, we often think about, and I think a lot of teachers will think this, especially about the traditional grading system. They'll say, well, the grading system is already clear. And I would be willing to wager that most families don't really understand the intricacies of a traditional grading system that focuses on weighted task types and tests are worth more than quizzes and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Ask someone to explain that to you. We recognize 5 letters of the alphabet or what have you, but the idea that I could explain it. So the reframe we want to offer you, the reset, is if students and families don't understand how their grades are produced, then it's not clear. It's not meant to be clear to you. You're the one that created it or you're the one that's operationalizing it. It needs to be clear to families and students. So we might think that we've explained our grading system, but if students are asking questions like, why did I get a 4? Or how come I got this grade? Or why did you do this? Then it's clear. They should never... I used to say to people before the electronic grade book, if kids had to ask, what's my grade, then we've got a problem. Now kids have access to their grades. But if they don't know why they're a 3 or a proficient versus an exemplary, or they're even in a percentage system, if I don't know why I'm a 79 versus an 86 or what have you, if I don't know why, that's a problem.
Facts. And so
Facts.
I'm like, yes.
I love that. Yes.
Sometimes I just
facts, double
let
tap.
you go off. I don't
let me go off. That's right.
So clarity means that students and ideally their parents as well can consistently predict what quality looks like.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
This is what it means to be a high quality learner in this space.
Yeah.
And families can really start to see as well, how is that learning progressing towards those qualities? And that's where true equity happens. That's where we get actual fairness. It's not, well, everyone gets the same assignment, the same grade, the same. No, because we can then have the same expectations, but that allows us for some variability because some people might need different things at different times, but the goalpost shouldn't change.
Yeah.
And the grade book should be so crystal clear about these are this is what we're doing. This is what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is how much it motivates and empowers parents to actually get more involved in their kids' learning.
Right.
So the first time I explored this, we didn't have a standards-based or outcomes-based grade book set up, but I had a set of rubrics. So I kind of had my 6 core English language arts rubrics that I wanted to work off of. One for reading for information, one for reading literature, writing, so forth. And at the beginning of the year, we gathered some evidence. And by term 1, I was able to show the parents with highlighters, okay, here's the qualities we're looking for in these big domains. Here is the evidence of where we're kind of thinking they're landing. But let's put that aside for a second. I'm going to actually show you some things. And so I would educate.
Yeah.
We would just spend time educating parents about this is an inference. As you can see here, they're really good at summarizing, but which is stating the things that are on the lines. But when it comes to reading between the lines and having to make an educated guess, things are falling apart a little bit. And they're like, okay. And then they're like, how could I help them with that? And you're like, oh, I love that you ask this.
Yeah.
Next time you're watching a show and a character does something that's not explicitly described, like they make a funny face or they react in a way that was unexpected, pause and turn to your kid and say, why do you think they did that? And you're going to hear very quickly an answer that's completely illogical or an answer that's actually kind of makes sense with the other information that's been provided. But you, as an adult, you have way more background knowledge than your kid does. So you'll be like, that's not it. But you could do some gentle coaching and guiding. And then parents get really excited. The next time they come in, they want to talk about all they've witnessed, what they've learned. You can celebrate the things that you've seen and gathered. So it's really about, can my students and their parents consistently predict what quality looks like, and more importantly, feel then that they can participate?
Yeah. So if you haven't had your open house night or meet the teacher night or anything like that, try to fold in a little bit of this. Give them a couple of simple, look, don't give them 3 essays to read. We know that's not going to happen. But give them a little snippet. Help them understand how, especially when you're using professional judgment. I love that idea of teaching the parents about what process you use in order to judge quality. So what can help? So going forward, make sure we've got rubrics. Rubrics, we don't make rubrics to make rubrics. We make rubrics to articulate success criteria clearly.
They're a teaching tool.
They are a teaching tool. So if we can articulate criteria and use exemplars to teach students how to interpret the criteria and to understand what quality looks like, they in turn can help their parents understand where they are in their learning. A lot of times, the key to parents understanding the grading system is their children. Teach the students how to understand how you use your judgment. What does quality look like? How you make those inferences when you're judging depth of understanding, and begin to educate people that way. And the other part is to maybe ask the students to explain their grade. So here's where you're at right now. You're a level 4, you're a 3, you're a 72, whatever the grade is. Get them to explain and contextualize why they think or why they are at that level.
Yeah.
And then we can bring them into those sort of insights.
Yeah. So in summary, let's not start this year by default. Let's start it by design.
Start it by design. So to recap our reframes, remember, early grades build momentum, feedback builds responsibility, zeros end the learning conversation. Not all work needs a grade to be valuable. As students and families don't understand the grading system, it's not clear.
So we're going to challenge you to pick one
Just
of
one.
these rules to reset, just one, and commit to doing it differently this year. Okay, that's it for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Assess That.
And don't forget to follow Assess That on Twitter, on Instagram. We've got links in the show notes for both of those.
And if you have any specific topics that you'd like us to talk about, you can DM us on either one of those platforms. So please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, as it really helps to grow the reach.
And finally, if you like what you're hearing, please keep spreading the word about the podcast to your friends, your colleagues, or on social media. We would really appreciate that.
And remember, assessment isn't a tool, it's a conversation.
And together, we're here to make it a better one.
Have a wonderful back to school season, everyone.